Today is Commitment Sunday, and we are invited through our spiritual practice of giving to lift up our shared vision of the world and see it as God does. Our stewardship theme this past month has focused on kitchen table giving, understanding that the conversations and activities that take place around the intimacy of the kitchen table form our values and practices for how we live and move and have our being. How we spend our money is one way we tell the story of who we are and whose we are. And money is not our only currency to invest. Our investment of time, talent, as well as our resources tell our larger story as followers of Jesus, who taught us through word and action that the way to abundant life is through a practice of radical generosity that involves giving away your life again and again. That it is in the service of self-emptying love that we are filled with even more love still, as that lovely song this morning illustrated. Thank you. This morning, I invite you to expand your kitchen table just a bit larger to include our migrant brothers and sisters in search of asylum at the U.S.-Mexican border, and in particularity, the children as we gather around their stories, struggles, and hopes. I am privileged to partner in the Ministry of Pilgrimage with Heartbeat Journey, a nonprofit organization founded by John Philip Newell, a Celtic scholar and minister. We recently expanded our peace pilgrimage model to engage systemic social injustice and humanitarian crises in our time. Through a combination of volunteer service, protest, prayer, witness, education from local migrant activists, fundraising, and accompaniment, we commenced our first Heartbeat Border Pilgrimage 3 weeks ago. Our driving mission was to respond with an all-in generosity that required nothing less than the whole of our lives, mind, body, and heart, as we engage the needs of migrants, asylum seekers, and refugees who are crossing the U.S.-Mexico border at Ciudad Juarez and El Paso, Texas. We served at the Annunciation House in El Paso, a designated respite center that cares for 400 to 600 people each week as they make their way through the region. We also volunteered at a similar respite center, Casa del Migrante, in Ciudad Juarez. Knowing this community as I do, and also knowing that pictures tell wider and deeper stories than words alone, I have created a short video with photos, many taken by my pilgrim colleague, Emily Scott, among others. I invite you now to enter into this life at the border as Jesus taught us, eyes and hearts wide open. We attended a rally at the tent city in Tornillo, Texas, where approximately 2,000 children, separated from their parents, are being housed. We learned that the number will rise to 3,800 by the end of this month. In the greater U.S., there are now nearly 13,000 migrant children in detention centers and shelters, the largest population ever, whose numbers have increased more than fivefold since last year. These children either came to the United States with their parents legally seeking asylum and refuge from their homeland, or they were sent here for safety by loving and fearful parents. Tornillo was originally intended to be operational for 30 days as a temporary shelter. At this point, it is designated to be operational until at least March of 2019. We learned that throughout the country, hundreds of children a week are taken in the middle of the night from licensed facilities and foster homes with operational and child welfare guidelines, including education and adequate access to legal assistance, and moved to the remote desert tent city in Tornillo with very little oversight and no access to education and legal assistance. Water must be trucked in and out. While the number of children crossing illegally or seeking asylum has not increased in recent months, the number of detained migrant children has spiked due to hateful rhetoric and policies that have made it harder to place children with sponsors. Potential sponsors are now required to have all members of their household fingerprinted and background checked, which means not only a longer detainment period for the children, but also a higher probability that many sponsors who are undocumented themselves will be deported. So the kids, they remain detained. Many, we are told, will most likely age out in the system. So, stories. While volunteering at Casa del Migrante in Ciudad Juarez, a respite center where refugees are welcomed and served every day, a couple of women who had heard we were there on a pilgrimage asked if they could speak with us. We met with Maribel from El Salvador and Amador from Guatemala while they watched their boys play in an outdoor area among children's toys and a swing set. Their boys, 4 and 7 years old, were playing, innocent, happy, unaware for now of all that their mothers have endured for their safety and future. Maribel and Amador immediately started asking questions. Are they going to take my son away when I get to the border? Why were so many people able to cross and live in America, but now all of a sudden children are being taken away? If they take my son away, I will die, Maribel proclaimed, with tears streaming down her face. Our pilgrimage group had been gathering first-hand accounts of all that was happening in the border that week. We already knew that every day at the border is different. With the migrant caravan in the news constantly while we were in El Paso and Juarez, we knew that the border was being more heavily militarized. We chose our response carefully as we became more certain that all we could do was accompany these women and bear witness. We don't know what will happen when you get to the border, we said. Every day is different. Why are they separating families? That's not humane, said Maribel. I should just go back to El Salvador. Amador became nervous and said to us, No, I tell her she can't go. She can't possibly go back to El Salvador, just like I cannot go back to Guatemala. Maribel, we said, we don't know what will happen. We wish we could give you the right answers. We can tell you that there are people fighting for you and for everyone, for your families. Many people are standing up and speaking out against everything that is happening. They asked about our pilgrimage. We shared stories of our pilgrimage group, united by our commitment to witness the border with our own eyes, to meet men and women with stories like hers, to return home and share the stories of what we have seen, to demand change to the injustices. We told her we'd been featured in the news down there. They were both excited about this. We showed them images of the newspaper article on his cell phone, and one of them asked, "There are more Americans doing this?" And we said yes, a lot more. Maribel and Amador shared stories of the violence and poverty in their countries, the violence they personally endured, the fear for the safety of their children, and the desire to live in America with family that has lived here for years. Maribel said a man had held a gun to her head once and had hit her 4-year-old son. She'd also seen a man in the street with his throat slashed. She shook her head as if she could shake the traumatic memories away. Maribel left for a moment and Amador stayed talking with us. You know, she and I just met here yesterday. We were both hungry and tired from all the walking. Our sons, too. They don't know what's happening. They just follow us wherever we go. Amador said, I know Maribel wants to go back to El Salvador, but she can't. I tell her to think of her son as I think of mine. He doesn't know what's happening, and he's young, but I am teaching him good values. I'm teaching him that we try hard, work hard, don't give up, and keep moving forward with God. I can't give up. I can't turn around and go back. I'm afraid for our lives. I need to go to the border. And if they're taking away children, then I won't get closer, but I need to go. I need to try. As we said our goodbyes, the women asked us to share their stories, embraced and blessed us, and offered prayers for our pilgrimage. We were amazed and rendered speechless by their courage, their prayers for us after all they have endured and all the uncertainties they face. We who entered in to bless had been blessed. The Gospel of Luke today is all about the alternative economy of the kingdom of God that is based entirely on radical generosity. By giving away our lives, we will find life given back, but not merely given back, Jesus says, given back with bonus and blessing. My time at the border impacted me in ways deep and profound, and I am sure that it is because I entered in with the whole of my being and all of the love I had to offer. I was all in. As such, I have never known the depth of lament that washed over me while standing outside the children's tent city in Tornillo, nor the seething rage at powers and principalities who have succeeded in depersonalizing our most vulnerable neighbors to such degree that walls are built and arms are taken up to keep the other, the enemy, out. My friends, my heart broke, but not apart. It broke open in this way that love poured out, and as quickly as it poured out, more poured in. In the midst of all the suffering and pain, there were moments of the inbreaking of God's realm. These exquisite encounters with a love that knows no bounds and will not be held back. Moments of seeing and being seen, of true solidarity, of kindness and love reciprocated. And there was joy. The children I encountered continued to reflect light in their laughter, love of play, and welcome of the stranger, regardless of circumstance. Even in the deep despair of the border, the Spirit of God was winging betwixt and between, and we were held in grace. I was blessed in ways I can't begin to name, and my cup spills over. This morning, the table is set for our communion celebration. May we find bread for the journey as we continue to wage love in this now and not yet realm. As Jan Richardson writes, and the table will be wide, and the welcome will be wide, and the arms will open wide to gather us in, and our hearts will open wide to receive. And we will come as children who trust there is enough, and we will come unhindered and free, and our aching will be met with bread, and our sorrow will be met with wine. And we will open our hands to the feast without shame, and we will turn toward each other without fear, and we will give up our appetite for despair, and we will taste and know of delight. And we, my friends, we will become bread for a hungering world, and we will become drink for those who thirst, and the blessed will become the blessing, and everywhere will be the feast. May it be so, and thanks be to God. Amen. Today is a day for Thanksgiving, yet there are those whose hearts and hope have been broken by the circumstances of their lives, and even those in this very room. As a community that believes in the power of prayer, we speak the names and concerns that make us cry for mercy and justice, for healing and peace, lifting them from the shadows and silence to the light and love that is God's love, love that holds us all.